some come up, some questions about angels come up. I do not remember who asked the question, but I do remember somebody come up with some questions about angels. And I said, we may dig a little deeper into that. Well, we're going to. This is not by any means going to be everything tonight. There will be more sessions on angels because it turns out there's a whole lot about angels. Matter of fact, and I didn't write down the number, but it is, there's about 270 references to angels in the Bible. That's a bunch. So there's a lot about angels, even though we don't seem to know a lot about angels a lot of times. And we don't, and they don't tell us the certain things. But we're going to answer some questions about angels, so we know what angels are, and what we know about angels, and things like that. And the very first thing I want to do is ask y'all this, and I want to see a show of hands and that kind of stuff. Or give me your hand, and then we'll follow. I want to know what y'all think of when you hear the word angel, the name angel. I want to know what you describe what an angel is to you. And that, I mean, again, it's not about wrong answers, right answers, stuff like that. I want to know what you think. Brilliant. An angel? Okay. Okay. All right, that's fine. That's the point of this. Okay. Okay. And I mean, what I'm asking is, what is your ideas of an angel?
I think of like shining light, wings, golden blonde hair, the
Austin Idol, basically.
yeah, like the glowing beam,
The Burger King? And that's what I'm asking. What do you see? What picture do you see in your mind when you hear angel? When you think of an angel? Go ahead, please.
I was going to say a messenger.
Okay. Because I thought you were fixing to say, yeah, I see the Burger King face too. But
And I visualize them in like physically like, like strong and chiseled.
yes. A halo? Yeah, okay. A heart? Playing the heart? Yeah, I mean, common things. You think of what? The art from the Middle Ages? Yes, very good. That is that, and the Middle Age art work, like the Renaissance art and things like that, that would have been the chubby little, nice little cherubims, as they call them, something like that. Yes, with a glow. Yeah, I know exactly what you. And that is a common thing for people to see as well. Come on, anybody else? What else do we see? What else do we envision when we think of angels? Anybody? White clothes. Come on. Protect us, okay? Anybody else?
Like invincible.
Yeah, okay.
Outright, like.
Anybody else got any more to add to it? Your thoughts on the angels? Peacekeeping, I like that. Someone with what? Okay. Anything else? Anybody got anything else to add?
Angels in the outfield.
Angels in the outfield. And I mean, that's the kind of, the truth is we all have different ideas when we think of an angel. And we do. But the Bible does make it pretty clear to us about angels. But the thing is there's a lot of information. So that's why we will have to take more than one night to do this. All right, so here's what we're going to start with. This is how we're going to start on angels. And I simply wrote what angels are. There's quite a few verses tonight, but we're going to run through it. And we're going to start in the book of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 1. Hey, can anybody tell me who wrote the book of Hebrews? Hebrew? No, it wasn't Hebrew. Who? You say Paul? Anybody else? Anybody else? Don't be looking. Who would you say? Okay. Anybody else? Actually, we don't know who wrote the book of Hebrews. It's one of the unknown books, although some contributed to Paul. Very good. But God is the author of the book. But anyways, that was just a side note. Hebrews chapter 1, I'm going to read to you verses 13 and 14. And they say this. But to which of the angels said he, or Jesus, at any time, sit on my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool? Now I'm going to stop right there, verse 13, saying this. And when it says to sit on my right hand until I make thine enemies footstools, what it's saying is God, that's Jesus' place, is the right hand. His enemies are his footstool. So what he's saying is, what point ever did God say this to an angel? And there we'll show you why. But in verse 14 it says, are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for them who shall be heirs of salvation? Now the first thing I want to point out to you about an angel is the most important thing about an angel is a minister. That is what he is. Now, does anybody know what the word minister means? Raise your hand. Anybody know what the word minister means? What's the definition of minister? Okay. Anybody else?
Mine says something about serving that is given to the
Okay. Let's go with good old Noel Webster's definition of minister. That's really good. In the noun sense, it is a chief servant. Hence, an agent appointed to transact or manage business under the authority of another, in which sense it is a word of very extensive application. In other words, an angel is literally a servant that works for God and does the will of God, and that's all that an angel does. But that can be all kinds of things that he can do. Whatever God would have him do, that's what an angel does. All right? If it's used, the word minister, as a verb, then it simply means to attend and serve, or to perform service. So an angel is a minister who ministers, or an angel is a servant who serves and does the will of God. That's what an angel is. So first and foremost, above all else, an angel's a minister. That's what he is.
Is he only used for Christians?
There's where we're going next, and that was from that verse. Here's what you need to know about that. To whom do angels minister? Or in other words, who do angels serve? Well, if you look at the end of verse 14 there, it says, for them who shall be heirs of salvation. Here's something that you need to know that is a communist conception in our world. An angel only serves a Christian or a person that will become a Christian. That's it. Angels do not protect or minister to the wicked. Now, that would take us into a whole other study. That's where we go into some of that free will and predestination and all of that stuff, to which one day I'm going to do with y'all. Because it's way more complicated than, and I say complicated, for our minds it's way more complicated, our finite minds it's way more complicated than just the fact that either we have free will or we are predestined. It's not that simple. It's not like that. The truth is both are correct. But we'll get into that at a better time. So what I'm telling you is an angel that serves God only ministers to Christians or those who will one day be Christians. And that's what you need to understand. If a person is sinful, wicked, and going after wrong things and serving the world, angels do not protect them nor minister to them. So don't ever think that angels are watching everybody, because they're not. It's not their job. It's not what God has set them out to do. Just like I remember that old, I think you had the little card that Granny Brown gave you, never drive faster than your guardian angel can fly. Well, that's true for all of us that are Christian or that's going to be called to be a Christian. But you don't got a guardian angel to outrun if you're not going to. So understand that. Angels don't work for everybody. They work for God, and they serve those of us that love God. So that is who angels minister to. Next, let somebody mention this. Angels are are strong. Almost as strong as me. Oh, maybe strong. Angels are strong. So turn with me to the book of Psalms in the 103rd chapter. Psalm 103, I'm going to read to you verses 20 and 21. Psalm 103, 20 and 21, it says, Bless the Lord, ye his angels, that excel in strength, that do his commandments, hearkening to the voice of his word. Bless ye the Lord, all ye his hosts, ye ministers of his, that do his pleasure. Angels are way stronger than anybody you know. They're way stronger than anybody combined that you know. Angels are like Superman. You know where the ideas of superheroes really probably came from? No, it's more angels. I mean, you think of the original. Now, I know for some, most of y'all won't understand it. Because used to superheroes, it was superheroes and supervillains. There was a clear line, and a superhero was nothing but good. Doing only good. There was no questions that he was going to do the right thing every time. And he was going to win because good always wins. That's what a superhero was really. That's an angel. An angel is going to win. And that angel is very strong, superhuman, supernatural. And that angel is going to do the will of the one that sent him, and he is going to win because he's doing good. That's what we got to understand. So that angel is unbelievably strong. He could probably, if he wanted to. That's, I mean, you know, if the Lord said, you know what, I need this angel to be able to shoot a spider web. I promise you that angel can shoot a spider web. Because God can do what he wants to. Remember that. I don't, so far though, I do not know of any need for an angel to shoot a spider web yet. But I'll keep on reading and looking at that. But anyway, there we go. They are extremely strong. They excel in strength. But even in excelling in strength, they still do what they are supposed to do as God lays out to them. And once again, they're ministers. That's what we describe as. The one thing you're going to find out is that's what an angel is. First and foremost, he's a minister. Now let's look at what my next little highlight was, or headline was. Angels are fighters. I mean, really tough, bad dude fighters. That's what an angel is. Now, with all of this said so far, that we got so far, does these persons that we're describing, does it sound anything like those Renaissance pictures that you was talking about? Oh, at this point, they're fighters. Angels are fighters. So, probably not the chubby little cherub that we see in Renaissance art and things like that. Maybe more like what Reed was talking about. But really not even that either, because that would be the pretty boy kind of masculinity. Angels would be more, I think, yes, more of a rugged, masculinity. But then again, they are angelic beings, so they're probably really good looking, that kind of stuff too. So, but yeah, Vikings might be a good one. All right, so angels are fighters. How do we know they're fighters?
Oh, yeah, there's the story of the army of angels that demolished.
Well, this is the one we're going to use for right here, right now. Go to 2 Chronicles chapter 32. And we're going to look at 2 Chronicles 32, verses 21 and 22. And that says this, 2 Chronicles 32, 21 and 22. And the Lord sent, listen to this, an angel. How many is an angel? That's one. And the Lord sent an angel which cut off all the mighty men of valor and the leaders and captains in the camp of the king of Assyria. Or in other words, the Assyrian army is camped out there ready to fight. An angel. So he returned with shame, talking about the Assyrian captain, Sennacherib. He returned, or king. He returned with shame of face to his own land. And when he was coming to the house of his little g God, they that came forth of his own bowels, or in other words, his children, slew him with his sword. Thus the Lord saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, and from the hand of all others, and guide them on every side. Now, if you want to know about this army, you can read, or about this siege and about this army, you can read chapter 32 and it will tell you. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Because right now we just know that there's one angel working on. But how about let's look back over to 2 Kings, just a little ways backwards. In 2 Kings chapter 19, we'll read 2 Kings 19, 35 and 36, which is talking about the same thing. 35 and 36 in 2 Kings 19. And it came to pass that night that the angel, again saying just one, of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. And when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and returned and dwelt in Nineveh. Does anybody know what 185,000 is? What is a score? Can anybody tell me what a score is? Give me a little old English here. A score is 20. All right, so if you got 4 score, how many you got? 80. So if you got 185,000. 185,000. That's how many people that one angel in one night killed. 5. Now what do you think about that? Is that pretty tough? Is that a fighter? That's a fighter. 185,000 fighting men. We're not talking about folks that just, fat old men sitting around in the fighters. We're talking about men of war. Fighters. 185,000 of them. One angel for every one of them killed one. I'd say that's a fighter. I believe that equals fighter. That's pretty good. But you know what? When they are directed by God, they'll fight for us. And they will defend us with extreme prejudice. You see, it's not just Jerusalem or Israel that they'll protect. They'll protect an individual. They'll do that too. But I want to give you some examples first in Scripture. Just a few little scriptures that goes with angels being fighters. And these I'm going to turn to real quick. The book of Zechariah. Anybody know where that one's at? Where's Zechariah? It's a minor prophet. It is the next to last book of the Old Testament. Zechariah 14:3 says this. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. When it tells you that the Lord's going forth to fight, he's taking his army of angels with him. So they'll fight for you. They are going to fight for you. And like I said, I'm going to kind of go through these quick right here. In back to Psalms. In Psalms chapter 34. We'll go to Psalms 34, verse 7. And it says, Psalms 34, 7 says, the angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him, and delivereth them. Those of us that love the Lord, those of us that are Christians, we have angels that encamp around us, and they protect us. That's what it tells us right there. They protect us. In Psalms 91, over at Psalms 91. Okay.
Huh?
There's something done that's distracting.
Got it.
And not often in the policy, it says the angel before the queen.
Jesus. Yes.
So what does that mean?
That is, we're actually going to go into that in the next study. I didn't go to that yet. But just to give you a highlight on that, anytime you see angel of the Lord, when it says that, there's a few different sayings that it'll say in the Old Testament. It only says it in the Old Testament. That is Jesus before he was born. That's Jesus before. That is Jesus manifested. No, it is. Here's the way to think about it. You remember in, I think it's the book of Mark, anyway, it's the transfiguration where Jesus takes Peter, what was it? He takes John, Peter, and James, I believe, up, and he transfigures, or changes into his glorified body. That's the Jesus that you saw as an angel in the Old Testament. But we'll go further, like I said, that's going to be further in another, we'll talk about that stuff. He is the angel of the Lord. He's described. He is above the angels. And like I said, that's, just save that if you would, because we're going to go into that probably the next time, or at least one of the next time. Now, Psalms 91, chapter 11 and 12. It says this, or Psalms 91, verses 11 and 12. For he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. I think this is very familiar to most of us. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. So, this is where we usually get the term guardian angel. It comes from out here. We're going to go more into that as well later. That's not really what we're just getting a baseline started here tonight. Those of us that are Christians, those of us that love Jesus, we have angels that protect us. We have angels that fight our battles. They do things for us that we would never know that they do. And that's as simple as that. Now some would say, well, how come we still get hurt? How come we did that? Because that's the will of God. An angel does what he is commanded to do by God. Sometimes we need things to happen in our lives so that we might see or understand or come to a point that Jesus or God needs us to be at in order to do the things that he needs us to do in our life. And that's something, and I think I'll get to that in a minute, so I'll leave that. But anyway, that was just that's a few verses on the angels and them protecting us and that kind of stuff. Now, as I said, it's not only the entire nations and things like that, but it is the individuals as well. I want you to turn with me to the book of Daniel. I think y'all might be familiar with it. Daniel chapter 6. I'm going to read two verses out of there. Verses 22 and verse 24. In verse 22, Daniel chapter 6, verse 22, it says, My God hath sent his angel and hath shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me. For as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also, excuse me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. In other words, this shows that an angel physically closed the mouths of lions so that they didn't eat Daniel. Now some of us would say, well, that was just because God didn't let him. Well, that's true, but an angel, it says, an angel came. And he stopped those lions from eating Daniel. And you say, well, maybe they really wasn't that hungry. Look at verse 24. In verse 24 it says, And the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions. Right after they poured Daniel out. Then them, their children, and their wives, and the lions had the mastery of them, and brake all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the den. Do you understand what that's saying? That's saying that right after they brought Daniel out, and they brought these other people in that had been the ones that got Daniel thrown in there in the first place for bad reasons, for wrong reasons, those people got through into that den. They never even hit the ground before the lions had ate them up. They caught them in the air before they hit the ground. That's how hungry and how nasty those lions was. There's one angel stopped every one of those lions from doing anything to Daniel the whole night that he was in it. Angels protect us individually. And there's no doubt about it. You know what else angels are? Angels are multitaskers. That's pretty impressive because most of us just do one thing at a time. Let me run through one little story right here real quick, and we're about to wrap up for the evening. But over in Genesis, going way back to Genesis, in chapter 19, I'm going to read you 5 different verses. Verse 1, 10, 11, 13, and 16, and then we're going to talk about the things, the multitasking of angels. In Genesis 19:1, it says, And there came 2 angels to Sodom at evening. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. Verse 1 tells us that these 2 are 2 angels. Well, they are 2 angels. So we know that these guys are angels. In verse 10, it says this. But the men put forth their hand and poured Lot into the house to them and shut the door. All right. Lot had went outside to try to get them, the evil people to leave these 2 angels alone. And they had started to overtake Lot. And these angels reach out, grab Lot, bring him back to the house. against all these people that's just pressing against Lot, trying to take it. So that tells us, once again, angels are very strong, and they are very protective. They have a mission. Their mission there was to protect Lot. So they did that, even with throngs of people out there. So we know that they're angels, we know that they're strong, we know that they're protective, and that they follow their orders. We already know that they're doing all of these things. In verse 11, it tells us this. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. This tells us that these angels that look like men, because that's what the guys, the awful people in this town, just thought they were a couple of good-looking guys that come into town. So these two guys that look just like human beings have supernatural powers. They blinded people. So they're strong, they're smart, they're strong, they're good-looking, they're doing their job, they're following through with their mission that they have against all odds, and they have supernatural powers. They make them blind. That's pretty interesting too. So they do that stuff as well. Now verse 13 says this. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. So we got all of this. Now we know that they've got supernatural powers from God. We know that they are destroyers, or warriors, or fighters, and that they do what they are told to do. So they, all of those few little verses right there, they've done every bit of that. Verse 16 says, and while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand. Talking about Lot was lingering. He's trying to get people out and get, other family members and son-in-laws and all of this stuff. But then he was lingering. Finally, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his two daughters. The Lord being merciful unto him, and they brought him forth and sent him without city. And it just once again shows us how strong they are. And it shows, because they took Lot and his wife and their two daughters, and they carried him out of the city. And now you got to think, this is a city full of wicked people that are trying to take him. I watched a movie one time that depicted these two angels fighting their way out of the city while they were protecting, Lot and his kids. And they got swords out, and they cutting everybody up, and they doing everything, and they're fighting their way out. They protecting them. They're gun ammunition. They're fighting. They're everything. They're all of these things. And they carry out their mission as appointed by God. And they do all of that. And if you wonder about, are they really here? Are they really around us? I mean, really? Are angels around us? That's what I read. Go to 2 Kings, chapter 6. 2 Kings, chapter 6. I'm going to read to you verses 16 and 17. Verse 16 says, and he answered, this is Elijah talking to his servant, fear not, because they're surrounded. You see, right now they're surrounded by the Syrian army. I mean, they're all around. These are men of war surrounding Jerusalem and surrounding Elijah and his servant who are outside of the city over here. They're completely surrounded. There's no hope. And Elijah's not worried at all. He's sitting around just whatever, hanging out, and the servant's all worried and scared and oh my goodness gracious. And Elijah says, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And you're thinking, what in the world is he talking about? Listen to this. And Elijah prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee open his eyes, talking about his servant, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elijah. That's angels in their battle gear. And you see, all around them out there, even though they had a whole Syrian army out there, that whole Syrian army was surrounded by the angels that were ready to fight. They couldn't. And guess what? Guess who won that one? The angels blinded all of them. And that they are, the host of angels. I mean, that's the host. And we'll get into numbers and things like that, but I can tell you that you can't count the angels, and we'll get to that'll be part of another one. And I want to bring up one last thing to you. And, you know, because we usually don't, we will not see angels for the most part. We're not ever going to see an angel in that angelic form. And I will describe what that angel looks like a lot of times. That comes up in a later time. But they are literally, I mean, a lot of the things we described are accurate. You know, wings and things like that. There's all of that stuff. And it tells us about that later. But we're not going to go in that tonight. But we won't see that for the most part. But they are all around us. And for Christians, they're there. They're here, they're there. And that, you know, we will be protected until, and here's the thing. We're going to be protected by those angels until what our job is, God has for us to do on this earth. Once we accomplish that, that angel will no longer protect us, rather, oh, they'll escort us home. Because you see, they escort us home too. I want to read you one little story before we quit. And it is, and then we will wrap this thing up. Just in case you're wondering if that could be possibly true, I want you to listen to this. Reverend John G. Patton was a missionary in the New Hebrides Islands. According to his testimony, his mission headquarters were surrounded by hostile natives one night. They apparently intended to burn the building to the ground and put John and his wife to death. It was just John, just his pastor and his wife, missionaries, and they were the only ones there. The Pattons turned to God. They threw themselves on his mercy and asked for deliverance. They prayed throughout the night. When the first rays of sunlight came the next morning, the Pattons were amazed to see the natives had left. About a year later, the chief of that tribe became a Christian. When Patton asked the chief why the tribe had refrained from burning down the headquarters on that fateful night, the chief surprised him by inquiring, "Who were all those men you had there with you?" Patton answered, "There were no men there. It was just my wife and I." The chief then told Patton that he and his warriors had seen hundreds of men standing guard outside the headquarters that night, all dressed in shining garments with swords drawn. These guards completely encircled the headquarters and the tribe dared not attack. It was then that Patton realized God had dispatched his angels to protect him. Same situation as Elijah. They're there. We are protected. You can account for that. That's guaranteed. God gives us that. So that's just the beginning of what we'll touch on angels. I'm not saying we'll do it each week, but we're going to address other parts of angel stuff going forward. But there's a lot we can know about angels in this Bible. Now I will tell you, most of it is not what we hear commonly in everyday stuff. But that's what angels are. So what is an angel first and foremost? I like that. He's a minister. I do like that. That's pretty good. I like it. First and foremost, he's a minister. That's what he is. So that much we've learned. An angel is a minister. You'll learn a lot more about it later. Any questions or comments about angels or anything else for that? Angels among us. He fell.
Actually just singing that in my head.
Yeah. Well, they are here among us for sure. Oh, yes. Touched by an angel, yeah. I remember I had a Della Reese and the English girl. The Della Reese was, yeah. And then, what's her name? Jane Seymour. No, she was Dr. Quinn. What was that? I know, yeah. And then if you really think back, there's Highway to Heaven with Michael Landon. He was an angel. So, that was The Green Mile. Yeah, he wasn't an angel. He was gifted.
I think he was gifted.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's what I
That's right. And here's it, and that's something we'll go to. Well, we mentioned this last week in that. Can people become angels? Angels are angels. We are people are people.
And then you say, oh, by angels, I mean, by angels, like they do before me.
They can look like anything. They can look like whatever God would have them. That's right. As human beings, and what that really means there is that this sinful nature is what really has us lesser than an angel. An angel was created to be a worker for God. That's what he is. And we were not. We were created to be a friend. And that's what that's how we were created. And they were given different gifts and powers and things like that we wouldn't get. But we were here to commune with them. Getting somebody to hang out with. No, they're not perfect, but the thing with an angel is they do exactly what they're supposed to do, and the moment they don't, they're cast down. And that's going to be something we go into with. Is that genre or that group? When they go, there is no redemption. No, they start. Yeah, that's where they begin. No, we begin here on earth. Actually, as far as our conscionable self, we begin. All right, anybody else? Good? All right, well, let's get some prayer questions. Let's see. Do what? I heard you that time. Good job. Is that? Yes, ma'am. Who else we got? Anybody? Prayer request? Yes, ma'am. Anybody else? Hey, all right, hey, y'all hold down the conversation, please. What? Okay. Y'all remember Rush White? Anybody else? Just now. What is your name? Just realize you know. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Tyler's dad, a friend of mine, I went to school with, he died when we were about a year short of our 2 year reunion. So we definitely need to remember that thing this morning. She had lost her husband and her son. We really need to remember all that thing, all of that. Albert and Jeanette and Kent and Judy and all of the whole world. That's a terrible thing. Y'all do remember to all the folks in the back. Anybody else? Well, we'll certainly do that, Mr. Hayden. We are very glad to see you open about around and about, and I think they pick them a little bit more, so he'll up with this is not their response. Y'all remember Hayden and Hayden back to the best. Anybody else? You good? Who's going to lead us in prayer tonight? Well, now, I don't force people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
But David's always welcome if he wants to.
You should make good
David's just a leader when he's ready to lead. David, when you're ready to lead, you lead a prayer. Otherwise, let's see which one y'all are. I'm so willing to call everybody out. Who we got? Do I got a volunteer? Oh, y'all got lucky. All right, let's bow our heads, y'all. Amen. Oh, we got, that's right, y'all. We got 2 birthday kids. We got 2 birthdays tomorrow. Emily and Alina, would y'all stand up, please? Oh, you know what? Y'all sit down. Everybody else stand up and let's sing happy birthday. Who's going to lead us in our singing? Papa? Come on, here. Yeah, come on. All right, somebody's lead it off.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday,
God bless y'all.
happy birthday to
y'all. Happy birthday, ladies. All right, y'all have a good rest of your week. I'll see you next time.
Yes, I may have to come to my house.
I was walking home from school. Took a short day.